If you're ready for a story where art becomes deadly, where ink holds secrets darker than blood, hit subscribe and tell me where you are watching from. Also, tell me in the comments, would you save a stranger bleeding in your garage? Because what you're about to witness will make you question everything you thought you knew about trust, family, and the deadly power of creation. Now, let's dive into a night that will change everything. The blood pooling beneath the dying man in Skylar Cox's garage formed a pattern she'd seen 1,000 times, because she'd inked it into her own skin 3 years ago, never knowing it was a map to someone's destruction. But she didn't know that yet. Not at 2:47 a.m. when she pulled into her driveway, exhausted from a double shift at Ink and Iron, her fingers still cramping from 8 hours of holding a tattoo gun steady. All Skylar knew was that her garage door wouldn't close properly, grinding halfway down before shuddering to a stop like it was choking on something. She'd deal with it in the morning. That's what she told herself as she grabbed her bag and headed for the side entrance. But the security light caught something wrong. A dark smear on the concrete, glistening, wet in the sodium glow. Paint, she thought. Someone vandalized the garage. Just what she needed after the kind of day that made her question why she'd ever chosen a career that involved needles, demanding clients, and Marcus's endless conspiracy theories about rival tattoo shops stealing their designs. The garage door opener hung useless in her hand. Skylar hit the button again. The motor whined, but the door refused to rise more than 2 feet. Something was blocking the sensor. She crouched, peering under the gap, and her breath caught in her throat. A man lay sprawled across her garage floor, his body twisted at angles that spoke of collapse rather than rest. His designer suit, she could tell it was expensive, even soaked crimson as it was, clung to him like a second skin painted in blood. So much blood. It spread across the concrete in branching rivulets, following the slight grade of the floor, pooling in the low spots. And the pattern. God, the pattern. Skylar's hand went instinctively to her left shoulder, tracing the geometric mandala tattooed there through her thin work shirt. The intricate design she'd created 3 years ago during the worst period of her life, when Mason had disappeared and she'd spent 6 months in a fog of grief and anger. She'd given herself the tattoo during what her therapist called a fugue state. Hours she couldn't quite remember, working from designs she didn't recall drawing. Therapeutic processing of trauma, the therapist had said. A way of making sense of senseless pain through permanent art. The blood on her garage floor mirrored that design exactly. Every curve, every intersection, every deliberate spiral, it was all there, rendered in crimson instead of ink. Skylar's training kicked in before her fear could. 2 summers as a volunteer EMT back when she'd thought she might go into medicine before art chose her instead. She yanked the garage door up manually, the mechanism screaming in protest. The man didn't move. She dropped to her knees beside him, her jeans immediately soaking through with his blood, and pressed 2 fingers to his neck. A pulse, thready and weak, but there. His eyes opened. They were dark, almost black in the dim light, and held an intensity that made her breath catch for a different reason. Intelligence burned there, sharp despite the obvious pain. He saw her, really saw her, and something like relief flickered across his face. "You're the artist," he whispered, his voice ragged, each word a struggle. "Finally found you. They'll kill us both now." Skylar's phone was already in her hand, 911 half-dialed, but his words stopped her. They'll kill us both, not just him, both. And he'd called her the artist, as if that meant something, as if he'd been searching specifically for her. Who did this to you? She kept her voice steady, professional, even as her mind raced. Multiple gunshot wounds from what she could see, chest, shoulder, side. The ragged breathing suggested a punctured lung. This man was dying on her garage floor, and somehow he knew who she was. No hospitals. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. No police. They're watching. They've always been watching. His eyes found her shoulder, even though it was covered. The designs, your designs, their maps, and everyone wants what they hide. The words made no sense, but the desperation in his voice was real. So was the fear. And beneath both, recognition, like he'd been looking at her face for years, memorizing it, preparing for this moment. Skylar thought of Mason, vanished 3 years ago without explanation, thought of the calls that stopped, the leads that went nowhere. The police who eventually classified it as a voluntary missing person case. Thought of the tattoo she'd given herself in the aftermath. The design that had come from somewhere deep and unconscious, and now pooled in blood beneath a dying stranger who claimed to know what it meant. She should call 911, should scream for help, should run inside and lock every door and pretend she'd never seen this man bleeding in her garage. That's what any sane person would do. Instead, Skylar made a choice that would change everything. "Can you walk?" she asked. He tried, failed. His face went gray with the effort. She hooked her arms under his shoulders, braced herself, and dragged him toward her house. He was heavier than he looked, dead weight except for the way he tried to help, his expensive shoes scraping against concrete. Blood marked their trail like breadcrumbs for whatever wolves were hunting him. Inside, she cleared her kitchen table with one sweep of her arm, sending mail and sketch pads clattering to the floor. Got him up and horizontal, though he gasped with pain that sounded wet and wrong. Her emergency kit was still in her car from her EMT days. She grabbed it, along with the bottle of vodka she kept for the occasional client who needed liquid courage before their first tattoo. "This is going to hurt," she warned. "Everything hurts," he managed. "What's a little more?" The bullets had to come out. At least the one she could reach without killing him. Skylar sterilized her best kitchen knife with vodka and flame, said a prayer to whoever protected foolish women making terrible choices, and went to work. He didn't scream, just gripped the table edge until his knuckles went white and breathed through clenched teeth while she dug metal out of flesh. "They're watching," he murmured as she worked, consciousness fading in and out. "Always watching. The designs, they're everywhere. Your brother," he choked on blood. "Your brother knew, tried to protect you. That's why, Mason." The knife slipped, nearly going too deep. "You know Mason." But his eyes had rolled back, his body going slack. Not dead. She could still feel his pulse, but deep in shock. She cauterized what she could, packed the worst wounds with gauze, and prayed it would be enough. That's when headlights swept across her windows. Skylar's head snapped up. A car had pulled up outside, engine idling. Through the thin curtains she saw shadows moving. Multiple figures. Car doors opening with careful quiet. The man's eyes flickered open, awareness cutting through the haze of pain. "Don't let them see the pattern," he gasped. "Cover it. Your tattoo, it's worth more than my life." Skylar grabbed her leather jacket from the hook by the door and shrugged it on, hiding the mandala on her shoulder. Her hands were still covered in his blood, her clothes soaked through. There was no hiding what had happened here, no explaining away the stranger on her kitchen table. Footsteps on her porch, a shadow at the door. The dying man's words echoed in her head. They'll kill us both now. Whoever was hunting him had just found his trail, and it led straight to her door. Dawn broke through Skylar's living room windows in shades of amber and rust, painting the man on her couch in colors that made him look almost alive rather than barely surviving. 6 hours had passed since the headlights swept her windows. 6 hours since her heart had stopped beating properly. The car had been her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, returning from her night shift at the hospital. Just a tired nurse parking her Honda, not armed men coming to finish what they'd started. But Skylar knew better than to feel relieved. The blood-soaked towels in her bathroom, the stranger breathing shallowly on her furniture, the kitchen knife she'd used for surgery still sitting in her sink. None of that screamed safety. It screamed borrowed time. Aiden Bailey. She'd found his wallet while checking for ID, for some clue about who she'd saved, stirred as sunlight hit his face. His eyes opened slowly, and she watched awareness return in stages. Pain first, sharp and immediate, then confusion about location. Finally, memory, and with it, something that looked almost like regret. "You're still here," he said, his voice rough but stronger than it had been. "I half expected you to call the police the moment I passed out." Skylar sat in the chair she'd pulled close to the couch, her arms wrapped around her knees. She'd changed clothes, couldn't stand wearing his blood any longer, but hadn't slept. Couldn't sleep, not with questions burning holes through her thoughts. "I want answers," she said flatly, "before I decide whether to call the police or an ambulance or just kick you back out into the garage to finish bleeding. You said my tattoo is a map. You mentioned Mason, start talking or I start dialing." Aiden tried to sit up, grimaced, and settled for propping himself on one elbow. "Your tattoo isn't just a map. It's an encrypted map to $50 million in assets. Cash, bearer bonds, art, weapons, everything the Ferretti crime family has been moving through Chicago for the past 5 years, and your brother is the one who stole your designs and sold them as an indecipherable encryption system." The words landed like physical blows. Skylar shook her head, denial automatic. Mason wouldn't. Mason was a gambling addict who owed Vincent Ferretti $200,000. Aiden interrupted, his dark eyes never leaving her face. "He stole your sketchbooks, claimed the designs were his own creation, some kind of code only he could crack. Ferretti paid him, integrated the encryption into their entire operation. Then they realized Mason couldn't actually decode the maps because he hadn't created them. You had." Skylar's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs, refusing to let him see how his words were tearing through her carefully constructed reality. "That's insane. I drew those designs from my imagination. I was processing trauma, my therapist said. Or you were processing your brother's descriptions." Aiden reached slowly for his phone on the side table, every movement obviously painful. "Mason talked about you constantly before he disappeared. Your gift for visual memory, the way you could recreate any pattern you'd seen, even once. He showed people photos of your work. That's how I found you 3 years ago. He pulled up his phone, fingers moving across the screen with practiced efficiency despite his injuries. Then he turned it toward her. Crime scene photos filled the display. Bodies in various states of violence, and every single one of them had tattoos similar to hers. Geometric patterns, intricate mandalas, designs that might have been beautiful if they weren't marking corpses. These are the people Ferretti thought might be you, Aiden said quietly. The artist. They've been hunting for 3 years, killing anyone with similar work, trying to find the one person who can unlock what your brother sold them. Skylar felt bile rise in her throat. Mason would never, he wouldn't put me in that kind of danger. He went into hiding the moment he realized what he'd done. Spent months trying to find you first, to warn you. But you'd moved, changed your number after he disappeared. He couldn't find you. And Ferretti's people were always watching him. Aiden's voice softened. The trail went cold 6 months ago. Either Mason's dead, or he's so deep underground even my people can't find him. Your people. Skylar stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Who the hell are you, really? The man who commissioned your original design. She spun back to face him. What? Aiden met her gaze steadily. 3 years ago, I paid an intermediary $10,000 to commission a custom tattoo design from you. Specific parameters. Geometric, layered, beautiful enough to be art, but complex enough to hide information. I never met you personally, just received the design digitally. It was supposed to be for business purposes, legitimate encryption. And then Mason stole it. And then Mason stole it and sold versions to my competitors. And suddenly, everyone wanted to know who the artist was. Aiden shifted, trying to find a less painful position. When you started tattooing yourself with the design, when photos started circulating, I've been searching for you ever since. Skylar moved back to the couch, kneeling beside it so she was eye level with him. Show me. Show me how my tattoo is supposedly a map. Aiden photographed her shoulder with clinical efficiency, then pulled up an app on his phone. Within seconds, he'd overlaid the tattoo design onto a map of Chicago. The geometric lines aligned perfectly with streets, the spirals marking specific intersections in warehouse districts, industrial areas, places Skylar had never been. Each point where the lines cross, Aiden explained, tracing them with his finger, corresponds to a hidden asset location. Storage facilities, safe houses, money laundering operations. Your brother gave Ferretti a treasure map, and you're the only one who can read it. I didn't know. The words came out broken. I swear to God, I didn't know what I was creating. I believe you. And strangely, he sounded like he meant it. But Ferretti doesn't care about your ignorance. Neither do the other families fighting over the scraps of his empire. They just want what you can give them. Skylar's phone buzzed on the coffee table, making them both flinch. She grabbed it, saw Marcus's name, and her stomach clenched. 3 texts in a row, each more urgent than the last. Where are you? Cops came by the parlor asking about you. Sky, call me, I'm worried. Don't trust anyone from your old life, Aiden said, watching her face. If they found me, if they know I came to you, then they know about everyone connected to you. Your business partner, your friends, your clients. Anyone could be compromised. Marcus wouldn't. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. How many times had Marcus asked about her tattoo? suggested she photograph it for her portfolio, wanted to know about the design she created in those fugue states. "I need to know what happened to Mason," Skylar said finally, setting the phone down. "The real story, not speculation. If I'm going to help you decode this map, if I'm going to risk everything, I need the truth." Aiden's expression shifted, something like sympathy crossing his features. The truth might be worse than wondering. "I've been wondering for 3 years. I can handle worse." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "We need to move. My second in command is on his way, Lucas Chen. He'll take us to a safe house where we can work without worrying about who's watching. But Skylar, once we start this, once you agree to decode those maps, there's no going back to your normal life. Normal died the moment I found you bleeding in my garage." She stood, moving toward her bedroom. "Give me 10 minutes to pack." As Skylar threw clothes into a duffel bag, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip the zipper, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. The tattoo on her shoulder was visible where her shirt had slipped, the geometric mandala that had seemed so beautiful, so meaningful when she'd created it. Art as therapy, art as processing, art as healing. But standing there in her bedroom, knowing men had died over similar designs, knowing her brother had stolen and sold her work, knowing crime families across Chicago were hunting her for the secrets inked into her skin, Skylar saw it differently now. Not art, not healing. A weapon she'd built without knowing. And now she'd have to learn how to wield it before it destroyed her completely. The penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower in downtown Chicago, the kind of place that screamed legitimate wealth rather than criminal enterprise. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the lake, all steel-gray water and morning light. Modern art hung on walls the color of cream. Everything was clean lines and expensive taste, nothing like the blood-soaked chaos Skylar had left behind in her garage. Lucas Chen met them at the private elevator, and Skylar understood immediately why Aiden trusted him. The man moved like a weapon, efficient, controlled, every gesture purposeful. He was maybe 40, lean and hard-edged, with eyes that cataloged threats the way Skylar cataloged visual patterns. When those eyes landed on her, they turned cold. "This is a mistake," Lucas said to Aiden, not bothering to lower his voice. "Bringing her here compromises the entire operation." "She saved my life," Aiden replied, leaning heavily on Skylar's shoulder as they moved into the penthouse. "Or she's playing you. Convenient, isn't it? You show up bleeding at her door, and she just happens to have medical training, just happens to take you in instead of calling the police." Lucas's accent was neutral American, but his posture screamed military background. She could be Ferretti's plant. Skylar felt anger spark in her chest. "I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask to find him dying in my garage, and I sure as hell didn't ask to find out my tattoos or treasure maps for crime families." "Convenient you didn't know," Lucas said, making air quotes that made Skylar want to punch him. "Enough." Aiden's voice carried authority despite his weakened state. "Dr. Park is on his way. Once I'm stable, we'll talk strategy. Until then, Lucas, I need you to trust my judgment." Lucas's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. "I'll secure the perimeter. But Bailey, if this goes wrong, if she leads them here, then you can say, 'I told you so,' before we all die," Aiden finished. "Fair?" The corner of Lucas's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Fair. Dr. Park arrived 30 minutes later, an older Korean man with steady hands and the kind of discretion that suggested he'd treated gunshot wounds before without involving authorities. He worked efficiently, tutting at Skylar's amateur surgery, but acknowledging it had probably saved Aiden's life. "I need to check for other injuries," Dr. Park said, gesturing to Skylar. "You've been exposed to significant blood loss. Need to rule out infection transfer, contamination." Skylar shrugged off her jacket, then her shirt, standing in her sports bra while the doctor examined her arms, checking for cuts she might not have noticed. That's when Aiden saw them. His sharp intake of breath made her turn. "What?" He was staring at her torso, his face gone pale beneath the tan. "You have more. The tattoos. You have more of them." Skylar looked down at herself, at the geometric pattern that curved along her ribs. She'd forgotten about that one, created it 18 months ago during another fugue episode. "Just the ribs," she started to say, then remembered. "And my thigh, and my back, but those were all—" "Show me." Aiden was trying to sit up, and Dr. Park was pushing him back down, but his intensity made Skylar's skin prickle. She turned, lifting her sports bra to reveal the mandala that covered her upper back. Pulled up the leg of her jeans to show the spiral pattern on her thigh. 4 total. 4 separate designs, all created during dissociative episodes after Mason disappeared. All geometric, all intricate, all supposedly meaningless expressions of trauma. "My God," Aiden breathed. "You have the complete set." Lucas had returned at some point, and now he was photographing each tattoo with clinical efficiency, overlaying them on maps with the same app Aiden had used. His expression shifted from suspicion to something closer to shock. "Each one covers a different sector," Lucas said, his voice tight. "North side, south side, industrial district, financial district. Together, they're a comprehensive guide to every asset Ferretti has hidden in Chicago. We're not talking 50 million, we're talking billions." Skylar felt dizzy. "I gave myself 4 tattoos, 4 separate times. I don't even remember doing most of them." "Dissociative episodes," Dr. Park confirmed, examining the tattoo work, self-administered given the angles and precision. "These were created over approximately 2 years, correct? After Mason left. My therapist said it was trauma processing, that I was trying to create meaning through permanent art." Skylar's voice cracked. "I thought I was healing myself." Aiden caught her hand, his grip weak but steady. "Or you were recreating your brother's work from memory. Did he ever show you his encryption designs before he disappeared?" The memory hit like a freight train. Mason at her kitchen table, sketches spread across the surface, talking excitedly about his new job. "I'm creating security protocols for a client," he'd said. "Look at these patterns, aren't they beautiful? They're like your art, Sky, but they mean something. They protect something valuable." She'd looked at his designs for maybe 30 seconds, admiring the geometric beauty before getting distracted by a client call. 30 seconds, and her photographic memory had recorded everything. "He showed me," Skylar whispered. "Just once, I barely paid attention." "But your subconscious recorded it," Aiden said gently. "And when he disappeared, when you needed to process the trauma, you recreated what you'd seen, made it permanent on your own skin." Mason knew. The realization made her feel sick. He knew I have photographic memory for visual patterns. He used to test me as kids, showing me complex designs and seeing if I could draw them later. He knew I'd remember. Lucas was pacing now, his military efficiency replaced by agitation. If she has the complete set, if Peretti finds out she's not just a lead but the actual key to everything, they'll never stop hunting her. Aiden finished. He looked at Skylar, and something in his expression made her heart clench. I'm sorry. I should have found you sooner. Should have warned you. About what? That my brother sold me out to crime families? That my business partner... She stopped, the thought hitting her like ice water. Marcus. Does he know? Lucas pulled out a tablet, his fingers moving across the screen. We've had surveillance on your parlor for 3 weeks, ever since we identified you as the artist. He turned the screen toward her, and Skylar's world tilted. Security footage showed Marcus in ink and iron after hours, photographing her client files, her sketchbooks, the drawings she kept in her private office. Another clip showed him meeting with a man in an expensive suit, the kind of man who looked like he belonged in Aiden's world. Another showed Marcus on his phone, gesturing toward Skylar as she worked on a client, clearly describing her. How long? Skylar's voice came out flat, emotionless, because if she let herself feel anything right now, she'd shatter. 8 months minimum, Lucas said. Possibly longer. We think he's how they found Mason in the first place. Marcus, her college friend. The man who'd helped her build Ink and Iron from nothing. Who'd held her when she cried over Mason's disappearance. Who'd attended Mason's memorial service. The one they'd held without a body, without any real closure, and told her Mason would want her to keep creating. He was selling me out the whole time, Skylar said to the air, to no one. While I trusted him, while I thought he cared. Since the beginning, Lucas confirmed, and his voice had lost some of its edge. Maybe even he could see how much this was destroying her. Aiden struggled to sit up despite Dr. Park's protests. There's more about Mason, and I'm sorry, Skylar, but you need to know. She looked at him, this man who'd crawled to her garage to die, who'd commissioned her designs years ago, who seemed to know everything about her life while she'd known nothing about his. Tell me. Mason didn't disappear 6 months ago. He died 6 months ago. His body was found in the Chicago River, execution style, 3 bullets to the head. Aiden's voice was gentle, but the words cut like glass. Police ruled it gang violence. Case went cold. My people identified him through dental records. The room tilted. Skylar sat down hard on the nearest chair. Dead. Mason's dead. He kept journals, encrypted ones, documenting everything. How he stole your designs, who he sold them to, what he realized too late about what they really were. I recovered them from his storage unit. Aiden paused. I had them with me when I came to your garage. Stashed them in the crawl space before I collapsed. I was going to tell you everything, give you closure, but then you almost died. Skylar's throat felt tight, and now Marcus is looking for those journals. Lucas pulled up more footage on his tablet, this one live feed from Skylar's house. Marcus's car was parked in her driveway, and through the grainy security camera she could see him in her garage, searching frantically. His phone was pressed to his ear. Lucas unmuted the audio. Marcus's voice came through tinny but clear. The journals aren't here. She must have moved them. Or Bailey got to them first. Vincent's not going to be happy. Vincent. The name meant nothing to Skylar until Lucas pulled up a photo on the tablet. The man was maybe 60, silver-haired, distinguished-looking. He had her mother's eyes, her mother's sharp cheekbones. The family resemblance was unmistakable. "No," Skylar breathed. "That's Vincent Ferretti," Lucas confirmed. "Your uncle, your mother's younger brother. He disappeared into organized crime before you were born. Skylar's mother had died of cancer when Skylar was 19. In those final weeks when the morphine made her talkative in ways she'd never been before, she'd mentioned Vincent once. "Never trust Vincent," she'd whispered, gripping Skylar's hand with surprising strength. "Never let him find you. He sees our gift as a tool, not art. He'd use you up and throw you away." "He's been searching for you for years," Aiden said quietly. "His niece, the artist. He sees you as genetic legacy, the family gift for creation passed down through your mother. He wants to possess that gift, control it, use it." "Did he manipulate Mason?" Skylar heard herself ask. "Did he orchestrate this whole thing to find me?" "We don't know," Lucas admitted. "But it's possible. Mason had gambling debts. Vincent's good at finding desperate people and making them offers they can't refuse." The pieces were falling into place, each one more horrifying than the last. Her brother, desperate and in debt, stealing her designs. Marcus, her trusted partner, selling her out for months. Vincent, her own blood, hunting her like prey. And Aiden, the mysterious client who'd started it all by commissioning her work 3 years ago. "We need those journals," Lucas said, back to business. "If Mason documented everything, they're evidence we can use against Ferretti. But your garage is compromised. Marcus knows we're looking for them." "I'll go," Skylar said. "I know places in that house Marcus doesn't. Spaces I never showed anyone." "Absolutely not," both Aiden and Lucas said simultaneously. "She could be leading us into a trap," Lucas added, the suspicion back in full force. "I'm the one who commissioned the design that started this," Aiden said, his voice hard. "I set this whole thing in motion 3 years ago when I paid for her art. If anyone's responsible for the situation she's in, it's me." He looked at Lucas. "I needed her talent then. I need her survival now." The weight of those words settled over the room. Skylar studied Aiden's face, seeing past the sharp cheekbones and dangerous eyes to the guilt eating at him. He blamed himself for all of this. For Marcus's betrayal, for Mason's death, for making her a target by ever seeking out her art. "We all need some rest," Dr. Park said, breaking the tension. "Especially you, Mr. Bailey. You're healing, but you're not healed. Push too hard and you'll tear something important." Lucas assigned Skylar a bedroom, checking it first for vulnerabilities which made her feel simultaneously protected and imprisoned. But sleep felt impossible. Her mind kept circling back to Marcus's betrayal, to Mason's murder, to the uncle who wanted to possess her gift. Around midnight, unable to stand the silence of her room any longer, Skylar wandered onto the penthouse's main balcony. The city spread below like scattered diamonds, beautiful and cold. She found Aiden there, leaning against the railing despite the fact that he should be in bed resting. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Too many revelations for one day." Skylar joined him at the railing, careful to keep distance between them. "Finding out your tattoos are worth billions, and your partner's been selling you out will do that." They stood in silence for a moment, the city humming below them. Then Aiden asked, "Why tattoos? Why permanent art?" Skylar traced the pattern on her shoulder through her shirt, the gesture automatic. "Because some things shouldn't be forgotten, even when they hurt, especially when they hurt." She paused. "When Mason left, everyone told me to move on, get over it, stop dwelling, but I couldn't. The pain felt important, like if I let it go, I'd be letting him go, so I made it permanent, made it beautiful, made it mean something. You turned pain into power, Aiden said softly. I turned pain into art. I didn't know about the power part. She looked at him. What about you? Why did you commission my design in the first place? Before Aiden could answer, Lucas burst onto the balcony, tablet in hand. We've got movement. Marcus just showed up at your house again. The live feed showed Marcus in Skylar's garage, his phone pressed to his ear. Lucas unmuted the audio, and Marcus's voice filled the night air. The journals aren't here. She must have moved them. Or Bailey got to them first. A pause. Yes, I'm certain. I've searched everywhere. If she has them, she's already gone. Another pause, and Marcus's voice dropped. Vincent, I've done everything you asked. I've been watching her for months. I got you the photos, the intel. I'm the one who confirmed Mason's location when he tried to contact her. You promised me. Lucas cut the feed. He's the one who got Mason killed. Skylar felt something inside her turn to ice. Not pain anymore, not grief. Something colder, harder, more permanent than any ink she'd ever used. The hunt was closing in, and the man she'd trusted most was leading the charge. The plan was simple in the way that all terrible plans seem simple until you're actually executing them. Skylar would return to Ink and Iron during business hours, act like nothing had happened, and keep Marcus distracted while Lucas's team retrieved Mason's journals from her garage. Simple. Except for the part where she had to look her betrayer in the eye and pretend she didn't know he'd gotten her brother killed. I don't like this, Aiden said for the third time, watching from the penthouse as Skylar prepared to leave. He was still too pale, still moving too carefully, but the doctor had cleared him for limited activity. Limited clearly being a relative term. You don't have to like it, Lucas replied, checking the wire they'd attached to Skylar's ribs just beneath her tattoo. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. You just have to trust that she can pull it off. Skylar met Lucas's eyes in the mirror. The suspicion was still there, but it had shifted into something closer to respect. Or maybe just resignation that she was their best option. Marcus knows me, Skylar said, pulling on a loose flannel shirt that hid the wire and most of her tattoos. He'll buy whatever story I sell him because he thinks I'm naive. He's been counting on that for months. And if he doesn't buy it, Aiden asked, then your team better move fast. Ink and Iron looked exactly as she'd left it 2 days ago, which felt impossible given how much her world had shattered. The neon sign buzzed in the window, walk-ins welcome, and through the glass she could see Marcus at the front desk talking to a client. He looked normal, friendly, like he wasn't a murdering traitor who'd sold out his best friend. Skylar took a breath and pushed through the door. Marcus's head snapped up. For just a second, genuine relief crossed his face, and Skylar had to remind herself it was probably relief that she was still alive to exploit. Sky, Jesus Christ, where have you been? She let herself look rattled, which wasn't hard. Milwaukee. My friend Jenna had an emergency with her mom. I left my phone at home. I'm so sorry. The cops were here asking about you. Marcus came around the desk, his concern looking so real it made her stomach turn. Something about a disturbance at your address. Are you okay? I'm fine. What kind of disturbance? They wouldn't say. Marcus studied her face too intently. Sky, if you're in some kind of trouble, I'm not. It was probably just the neighbor's kid messing with my garage door again. She shrugged out of her jacket, revealing the schedule board. Looks like I've got 3 appointments today. Better get set up. The first client was easy. A regular getting color added to an existing piece. Skylar fell into the familiar rhythm of her work, the buzz of the tattoo gun drowning out thought, but she felt Marcus watching, felt his eyes tracking her movements, his phone calls becoming more frequent, always taken in the back room where she couldn't hear. She started noticing other things too. The client who'd come in yesterday asking about consultation but never booking. The camera angle in the corner that pointed directly at her station. The way Marcus had started photographing her work for social media, but always seemed more interested in her original designs than the actual tattoos she was completing. How had she missed this for 8 months? The stranger arrived during her lunch break. Mid-30s, expensive watch, cash payment. He wanted a custom design, he said, and proceeded to describe something that made Skylar's blood run cold. Geometric patterns with specific intersections. Spirals that followed precise mathematical ratios. The kind of design that looked beautiful but hid information. He was describing her tattoo. One of her tattoos. The one on her thigh that no one should know about. Interesting, Skylar said, keeping her voice light. That's pretty complex. Can I ask what inspired it? Saw something similar online, can't remember where. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Think you can do it? This was a test. Ferretti's people checking if she recognized her own work, if she understood what it meant, if she'd run or if she'd play dumb. Skylar pulled out her sketch pad and started drawing, letting her hand modify the design as she went. Similar geometry, different intersections, legally distinct, as artists said when they were skirting copyright. How about something like this? Same vibe, but more original. I don't like to replicate other artists' work exactly. The man studied the sketch. Studied her. Looking for any sign of recognition or fear, Skylar gave him her best oblivious artist smile. Yeah, okay, he said finally. But I need to think about it. I'll come back. He left without booking an appointment. The wire under Skylar's ribs felt like it was burning into her skin. After hours, after the last client left and she was cleaning her station, Marcus locked the front door. The click of the deadbolt echoed too loud in the quiet parlor. We need to talk, he said, pulling up a stool across from her. Skylar's heart hammered, but she kept her hand steady as she organized her ink bottles. About what? About whatever's really going on with you. Marcus leaned forward, his expression carved with concern that might have been convincing if she didn't know better. Sky, I know you're in trouble. I know you're scared. Whatever you're involved in, I can help. She let her hands shake as she set down the bottle she was holding. How did you know? Because I know you. You don't just disappear for 2 days. You don't show up looking like you haven't slept. He reached across the table, catching her hand. Talk to me. Whatever it is, we can handle it together. I think someone's following me, Skylar said, letting her voice crack. I don't know who or why, but I keep seeing the same cars, the same people. I'm scared, Marcus. Do you know what they want? She shook her head. No idea. It started after she stopped, as if catching herself. After what? Nothing. It's probably nothing. Marcus squeezed her hand. Sky, I have connections. People who can help protect you. People who understand how to handle these situations. What kind of people? She let herself sound desperate. People who understand the value of your work, your talent. He paused. People who could make sure you're safe and compensated fairly for your gifts. There it was. The pitch. Come work for Ferretti. Let them exploit your talent and we'll call it protection. Skylar pulled her hand back. How much did they pay you, Marcus? His face went carefully blank. What? I know you've been photographing my work. I know about the cameras. I know you led them to Mason. Her voice stayed level, cold. So, I'll ask again. How much did they pay you to sell me out? For a second, Marcus looked like he might deny it. Then something in him crumbled. I had debts, gambling debts, just like Mason. Ferretti owned me, Sky. He owned both of us. So, you gave him my brother. I tried to protect you. Marcus stood pacing. I steered them away from you for months. Told them Mason was the one with the gift, that you were just a regular tattoo artist. But then Bailey got involved and everything went to hell. They knew about you, knew you were the real artist. Aiden didn't tell them about me. You did. Vincent just wants to meet you. Marcus's voice took on a pleading edge. A family reunion, Sky. He's your uncle. He wants to help you profit from your gift instead of wasting it on walk-in clients and flash art. He's not a monster. He killed Mason. Mason knew too much and couldn't deliver what he promised. Marcus moved closer. You can deliver. You are the map. Come voluntarily or they'll take you, but either way, Vincent gets what he wants. The front door burst open, not smashing, just the smooth click of someone who knew how to pick locks. Lucas and 3 operatives in tactical gear flooded into the parlor, weapons drawn but pointed down. Marcus froze, his face going from threatening to terrified in seconds. We good? Lucas asked Skylar. Got everything. She pulled the wire out from under her shirt, showing him it was still recording, including his confession about Mason. Marcus's eyes went wide. You're working with them? Sky, you have no idea what you've done. Vincent will... I'm FBI, Lucas interrupted, pulling out his badge. Special Agent Lucas Chen, Organized Crime Division. I've been building a case against the Ferretti organization for 3 years. And Marcus, you just confessed to conspiracy and accessory to murder on federal recording. Marcus's knees gave out. He sat down hard on the nearest stool. I can help. I can get you a meeting with Vincent. I can wear a wire, get evidence. We don't need your help. Lucas looked at Skylar. We have better bait. The words hung in the air. Skylar understood what he was proposing before he said it. Use her to draw Vincent out, set up a meeting, get him on record threatening her, wanting the maps. Put the monster away for life using the niece he'd been hunting. You want me to meet with the man who killed my brother? Skylar said slowly. I want you to help us put him away for life, Lucas corrected. Your testimony, your tattoos, combined with everything we've collected, we can end him. But we need him on record, making demands, making threats. We need him to admit what the maps show. Aiden's voice crackled through Lucas's earpiece, loud enough for Skylar to hear. Your choice, Skylar. But if you do this, I'm there with you. One of Lucas's operatives brought over a laptop, setting it on the tattoo station. We recovered these from the journals, he said. Video files. Your brother recorded everything. He pressed play. Mason's face filled the screen, gaunt and scared, recorded in what looked like a cheap motel room. Sky, if you're watching this, I'm either dead or I've finally gotten the courage to face you. Either way, I need you to know the truth. Skylar sank into her chair, unable to look away. I stole your designs to pay off gambling debts. Told Ferretti they were my own encryption system, that only I could decode them. I was stupid and desperate, and I didn't realize until too late that they were going to use them for everything. Money laundering, weapons trafficking, murder. Mason's voice cracked. I tried to find you to warn you, but they were always watching. Every time I got close, they knew. So I'm hiding the truth where only you would look. The journals, the videos, everything I documented. It's all there, Sky. Use it. Finish what I couldn't. The video cut off abruptly. More files waited on the screen, hours of footage to watch later. But that first one was enough. When? Skylar asked, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. "Tomorrow night," Lucas said, "here at Ink and Iron, Marcus will arrange the meeting, wired up. We'll have tactical positions throughout the building. And Skylar, you won't be alone." The door opened again, and Aiden walked in, moving carefully but determined. Dr. Park was going to kill him for being out of bed, but his eyes found Skylar's and didn't waver. "Why are you really doing this?" he asked her quietly. "Because Mason died trying to protect me. Now it's my turn to finish what he started." She stood, facing him. "And because I'm tired of running from maps I didn't know I was making. Time to reclaim them." Lucas was coordinating with his team. Marcus was being cuffed and read his rights. Operatives were sweeping the parlor for more surveillance equipment. But in the middle of the chaos, Aiden crossed to Skylar, reaching out to trace the edge of the tattoo visible on her collarbone. "When this is over," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear, "I want you to give me one. Your choice of design, something that means beginning, not ending." Skylar's breath caught. She could feel the heat of his hand through her shirt, see the intensity in those dark eyes that had first opened in her garage. They were so close. Close enough that she could count his heartbeats, see the moment his gaze dropped to her mouth. "Boss," Lucas called, "we need to plan tactical positions." The moment shattered. Aiden stepped back, but his fingers trailed down her arm, squeezing her hand once before letting go. As Skylar prepared to face the monster who destroyed her family, she realized the most dangerous thing wasn't the maps on her skin. It was the trust growing in her heart for a man just as dangerous as her uncle. But where Vincent wanted to possess her gift, Aiden wanted to protect it. Wanted to protect her. And maybe, just maybe, that made all the difference. 9 p.m. arrived with the weight of inevitability. Ink and Iron's neon sign buzzed its usual welcome, but tonight the parlor was a trap wrapped in familiar colors. Lucas's FBI team had positioned themselves throughout the building. Operatives disguised as late-night pedestrians, snipers on the rooftops across the street, agents in the neighboring businesses that had been quietly evacuated. The parlor looked normal, felt normal, but Skylar could sense the coiled tension waiting to spring. She adjusted the wire taped to her ribs, the audio and video feeds transmitting to Lucas's command station in the back room. Aiden sat beside Lucas despite the doctor's explicit orders to remain at the penthouse. He was pale, his shoulder freshly bandaged from where he'd torn stitches earlier, but his eyes were sharp and fixed on the monitors showing every angle of the parlor. Marcus stood at the front desk, also wired, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold his phone. He'd made the call 2 hours ago, arranging the meeting. Vincent had agreed immediately, which Lucas said was either arrogance or certainty that he'd already won. 3 minutes, Lucas said through their earpieces. "Everyone in position. Remember, we need him on record. Clear threats, clear admissions. Don't rush it." Skylar's hands were steady as she arranged her tattoo equipment on the station. Bottles of ink in every color, including the UV reactive ones she'd carefully positioned where Vincent wouldn't notice. Synthetic skin stretched across her work surface, blank and waiting. Her art had been weaponized without her knowledge. Tonight, she'd weaponize it herself, deliberately and with purpose. Black SUVs rolled up outside like shadows made solid, 6 of them surrounding the block, and Skylar watched through the window as armed men emerged. They moved with military precision, securing the perimeter before the 7th figure stepped out of the center vehicle. Vincent Ferretti looked exactly like the photos, but seeing him in person made Skylar's breath catch. He had her mother's eyes, her mother's sharp cheekbones. The family resemblance was undeniable, and it made her stomach turn to see her mother's features twisted into something cold and calculating. He entered the parlor alone, his men remaining outside. Vincent's gaze swept the space before landing on Skylar, and genuine emotion crossed his face. Something that might have been affection if it weren't wrapped in possession. "You look like your mother," he said, his voice cultured and warm. She had the same fire in her eyes when she was creating. "I've been searching for you for so long, Skylar." The sound of her name in his mouth sent chills down her spine. "Uncle Vincent," she managed. "I didn't know I had any family left." "Your mother made certain of that. She betrayed the family, rejected the gift we share." He moved closer, studying her like she was a painting he was considering purchasing. "She told you about me?" "Only that I should never trust you." Vincent laughed, the sound genuinely amused. Of course she did. Elna always was dramatic. She had our father's gift, the photographic memory for patterns, the ability to create art that holds secrets. Master counterfeiter, my father, built an empire on it. Elena could have ruled beside him, but she chose to throw it away for some misguided sense of morality. And now, you want me to do what she wouldn't. I want you to embrace what you are. Your brother was weak, desperate, easily controlled, but you... Vincent's eyes gleamed. You inherited the gift purely. I've seen your work, the precision, the complexity. It's in your blood, Skylar, art that holds power. What happened to Mason? Skylar kept her voice level, aware of the wire recording everything. Your brother came to me with your designs, offered them as payment for his gambling debts. I recognized them immediately. Your mother used to create similar patterns when we were children. I knew Mason hadn't made them. He was just the messenger. Vincent circled her slowly. I kept him alive long enough to track you down. But then he got sentimental, wanted to warn you, take you away from my reach. I couldn't allow that. So, you killed him. I had Marcus confirm his location when he tried to contact you, made it quick at least. More mercy than he deserved for trying to steal what was mine. Vincent's tone never changed, discussing murder like a business transaction. You were mine to find, Skylar. Mine to mold, family legacy. Marcus made a choked sound by the front desk. Vincent glanced at him dismissively. Marcus has been very helpful. $50,000 to confirm your brother's location. Another $30,000 to keep watch on you, document your work, even plant that therapist who suggested tattooing yourself as therapy. Every design you created during your grief, I saw within hours. Skylar felt rage burn through her veins, but she channeled it into her performance. So, what now? You found me. What do you want? Partnership, Vincent said smoothly. You decode the maps, we split the proceeds. Billions, Skylar. Not the pittance you make here. I'll provide protection from the rival families hunting you. Resources to create whatever you want. You'll be free, powerful, wealthy. And if I refuse? Then you learn exactly how your brother died firsthand. Vincent's smile turned cruel. But I don't think you'll refuse. Tell Bailey to come out. I know he's here, no need to hide. The back room door opened. Aiden emerged, his posture controlled despite his injuries, moving to stand slightly in front of Skylar. Protective instinct overriding tactical sense. Vincent's expression darkened. Aiden Bailey, the man who started this whole war by commissioning her original design. Tell me, how does it feel knowing you painted a target on her back? Every family hunting her, every body with similar tattoos, all because you wanted her art. I'm going to end you for what you did to Mason, Aiden said quietly, and the promise in his voice was absolute. You'll try. Vincent turned back to Skylar. So, do we have a partnership? Skylar moved to her tattoo station, her hands moving over her equipment. If I agree, I need to create A translation key. The tattoos are encrypted in layers. I'll need to work it out on synthetic skin first, show you how to read them. By all means. Vincent settled into the client chair, confident and relaxed. His men remained outside, visible through the windows. He believed he'd already won. Skylar set up her equipment, pulling bottles of ink. Regular black, shading gray, and the UV reactive blue that looked clear in normal light. She began working on the synthetic skin, creating what appeared to be a complex decoding guide. Vincent watched, fascinated, as the pattern emerged. But while her hands worked on the obvious translation key, her feet were moving too. She'd positioned UV ink bottles at strategic points around the parlor. Each time she stood to get a different shade, she was marking the walls with invisible evidence. Mason's murder timeline written in glowing letters that wouldn't show until activated. Vincent's confessions documented in his own words. Marcus's surveillance photos that Lucas's team had printed on UV reactive paper, deployed around the room like gallery pieces. She was creating an evidence installation, and Vincent was too focused on the prize to notice. Almost done, Skylar said, adding final touches to the synthetic skin. The visible map showed warehouse locations, real ones from the intelligence Lucas had gathered. Enough to look legitimate. Vincent leaned forward, examining the translation guide. Marcus shifted nervously by the door, and that's when he saw it. The UV ink bottles on Skylar's station, the slight shimmer on her hands where she'd gotten careless. Wait, Marcus started. Too late. Skylar hit the black lights. The parlor exploded in glowing blue-white evidence. Every wall blazed with Vincent's confessions. Dates, names, locations, all written in his own words, captured through the wire and transcribed in invisible ink. The floor showed Mason's murder timeline, from debt to death, with Vincent's role highlighted. The ceiling mapped his entire operation using Marcus's own surveillance photos, now visible in UV light, each one damning. Vincent's face went from confident to furious in seconds. "You, FBI, nobody move!" Lucas's voice boomed as agents flooded through every entrance. Vincent's men outside opened fire. Glass shattered and chaos erupted. Lucas's team returned fire with precision, and Skylar heard bodies hitting pavement. Marcus bolted for the back door, but Aiden intercepted him, tackling him despite his injuries. They went down hard, crashing into a display of flash art. Vincent lunged for Skylar, surprisingly fast for a man his age. His hand closed on her arm, yanking her in front of him as a shield. "Back off, or she dies." Skylar's hand closed around her tattoo gun. She'd prepared for this, loaded it with ink mixed with the sedative from her emergency medical kit. The same trick she'd learned during her EMT training for handling violent patients. When Vincent pressed a gun to her temple, Skylar twisted and drove the tattoo gun into his face. Not tattooing, just injecting. Straight into his eyes, the most sensitive tissue. Ink and sedative flooded his system. Vincent screamed, releasing her as he clawed at his face, temporarily blinded by both the chemical burn and the drug. Lucas and his team were on him in seconds, forcing him down, securing his hands. Across the parlor, Aiden had Marcus pinned. Marcus was crying, pleading. "I didn't have a choice. The debts, the threats, you don't understand." "She trusted you with everything," Aiden said, his voice cold. Blood seeped through his shirt from torn stitches. "You were her friend, her partner, and you sold her brother to his death." "And you? You're playing hero?" Marcus spat. "You're as bad as Vincent. You commissioned those designs. You started this." Aiden's fist connected with Marcus's jaw. The difference is, I'd die for her. You killed her brother for money." FBI agents pulled them apart, cuffing Marcus as they read him his rights. Vincent was being secured, still screaming about his eyes, threatening lawsuits and violence in equal measure. His men outside were either dead, wounded, or surrendering. The parlor looked like a war zone. Bullet holes in the walls, glass everywhere, blood mixing with spilled ink. Lucas appeared at Skylar's side, checking her for injuries. "You did it. That UV evidence combined with the wire recordings, we have everything. Vincent's done. Marcus is done. The entire Ferretti organization is going to crumble." Skylar barely heard him. She was looking at Aiden, who'd slumped against the wall, his shirt now completely crimson. "He's bleeding again." Paramedics were already flooding in. They got Aiden on a gurney, and Skylar refused to let go of his hand. He looked up at her, pale, but smiling slightly. "Every drop I bled in your garage was worth this moment." "Let's make sure you don't bleed out before you can buy me dinner," Skylar replied, her voice shaking. Outside, sirens wailed and cameras flashed. Media vans were arriving, drawn by the gunfire and FBI presence. Lucas was coordinating with his team, securing evidence, giving orders. An agent was already photographing the UV evidence before it could fade. As they loaded Aiden into the ambulance, the paramedic looked at Skylar. "Family only." Skylar met Aiden's eyes. He nodded weakly, squeezing her hand. "Yes," she said firmly. "I'm family." She climbed into the ambulance, keeping hold of his hand as the doors closed. Through the rear window, she could see ink and iron, her sanctuary, now a crime scene. Vincent being led away in handcuffs, still screaming about his eyes. Marcus slumped in the back of a police car, his betrayal finally complete. As sirens wailed and cameras flashed, Skylar Cox realized that sometimes justice wasn't found in revenge. It was created, one painful truth at a time, made permanent in ways that couldn't be erased. Just like her art, just like her tattoos, just like the scars they'd all carry from this night forward. But unlike the maps she'd created unknowingly, these marks were her choice, and that made all the difference. 6 months had passed, and the new parlor smelled of fresh paint and second chances. Second Chances, Inc. occupied a renovated storefront in a neighborhood that knew more about survival than surrender. The walls displayed before and after photos, gang tattoos transformed into butterflies, prison ink reimagined as gardens, marks of violence reborn as symbols of hope. Skylar Cox had learned that art could destroy. Now she was proving it could also heal. The grand opening drew a crowd that would have terrified her 6 months ago. Former gang members giving testimonials about how covering their old tattoos had helped them leave that life behind. Community leaders praising the program. And in the back, watching with quiet pride, Aiden Bailey, no longer a crime boss, just a man trying to be better. But to understand how they got here, you had to go back to the week after the showdown, when everything was still raw and bleeding. The FBI safe house had been sterile and cold, nothing like the penthouse where Skylar had first learned the truth about her tattoos. Aiden had been in surgery for 6 hours, repairing damage from torn stitches and new bullet wounds. Skylar visited every day, bringing sketches and coffee, slowly learning how to exist in a world where her brother was confirmed dead and her art had brought down a criminal empire. Lucas had given her the USB drive on day 3. "Mason's final video," he'd said, "the full version. Thought you should watch it when you were ready." She'd waited until Aiden was awake enough to hold her hand. Then she'd pressed play. Mason's face filled the laptop screen, gaunt and scared, filmed in what looked like her garage, the same space where Aiden had later collapsed. "Sky, if you're watching this, I'm either dead or I've finally gotten the courage to face you. Either way, I need you to know the truth." He'd hidden the journals in the crawlspace behind him, the same one where they'd played hide-and-seek as kids. "Only you know this space like I do. Only you would think to look here." His voice cracked. "Sky, I'm sorry I failed you. Every bad choice I made was trying to fix the first one. I stole your designs to pay off debts, and I realized too late what they were being used for. Your art was supposed to save us. Instead, I made it our curse. Maybe someday you can make it beautiful again." Skylar had broken down then, properly grieving for the first time. Not for the brother who'd abandoned her, but for the one who died trying to protect her. Aiden held her through the sobs, his own injuries forgotten, whispering, "He loved you. That's why he stayed away. To protect you." And Skylar realized the truth. Her art was never the curse. Mason's choices were. But her art could be the salvation if she chose to make it so. The trial had been swift. Once Vincent started talking, trying to cut deals that the prosecutors refused. Life sentence, no parole, for murder, racketeering, and a dozen other charges. Marcus got 25 years for conspiracy and accessory to murder. The Ferretti organization crumbled within weeks, picked apart by rivals and federal agents. The media had tried to make Skylar a celebrity, the artist who mapped her way to justice, but she'd turned down every interview. She didn't want fame. She wanted to rebuild, to take the gift that had been weaponized and turn it into something that actually saved people. Aiden had transformed too. With Lucas's help navigating the legal complexities, he'd divested from every gray area operation his family had run. Legitimate businesses only now: construction, real estate, community development. He'd started attending therapy, processing decades of trauma from a crime family upbringing. And through it all, Skylar had been there, watching him become the man he'd always wanted to be. Now, at Second Chances Inc.'s opening, Aiden approached her station where she was consulting with a former gang member about covering a teardrop tattoo. He waited patiently until they were done, then asked quietly, "Any chance you have time for one more client tonight?" Skylar smiled. "Private session? That'll cost you extra." "I think I can afford it." After the last guest left and the doors were locked, Skylar set up her station properly. Aiden sat in the client chair, and for a moment she was transported back to that first night, him bleeding, her terrified, neither of them knowing how their lives were about to intertwine. "I want a tattoo matching your shoulder piece," Aiden said, "not as a map, as a symbol of what we survived together." Skylar designed the stencil carefully, modifying the original geometric mandala with new elements: a phoenix for rebirth, a compass for finding their way, an oak leaf for strength through changing seasons. The same basic pattern that had started everything, transformed into something new. As she prepped his skin, Aiden started talking. "I saw your work at an art show 3 years ago. Small gallery on the south side. You probably don't even remember it. But I stood in front of your pieces for an hour, completely mesmerized. The way you made patterns hold emotion, tell stories without words." Skylar's hands stilled. "You commissioned the design because you saw my art? I fell in love with your talent before I ever met you. Commissioned the design intending to meet you when it was done, but then my father died, the gang wars started, and everything went to hell." He met her eyes. "I spent years searching for you. And when I got shot, when I knew I was dying, I crawled to your garage because it was the closest I could get to you. If I was going to bleed out, I wanted it to be somewhere that mattered. You mattered, Skylar, before I even knew your name." Her hands were shaking so badly she had to set down the tattoo gun. That's the most romantic and deeply disturbing thing anyone's ever said to me. Aiden laughed, the sound rich and genuine. That's us, isn't it, beautiful disaster? Skylar resumed working, the buzz of the tattoo gun filling the comfortable silence. When she finished the final line, she photographed it next to her own shoulder tattoo. Mirror images, but transformed. The originals had been weapons created in ignorance. These were shields chosen with purpose. We match now, she said softly. By choice, not by accident. Aiden stood, pulling her close despite the fresh ink. I love you, Skylar Cox. Not because you saved my life, though you did. Not because you're a walking work of art, though you are. But because you took your brother's curse and made it your power. You turned pain into purpose, and you make me want to be better than I ever thought I could be. Skylar's throat tightened with emotion. I love you too, even though you're ridiculous and dramatic and probably terrible for my blood pressure. But Aiden, you make me believe art can save instead of destroy. You make me believe I can save instead of destroy. Come with me, Aiden said, taking her hand. I have something to show you. He led her outside, pointing to the building next door, the empty storefront she'd been admiring, imagining what it could become. I bought it, Cox Gallery, for all your non-tattoo work, paintings, drawings, whatever you create. Your brother said your art should save you. Let me help make that true. Skylar stared at the building, then at him, then started laughing through tears. You bought a building? You bought an actual building? I bought a future for both of us. She'd created one final tattoo for herself over the past 6 months, the largest, most complex piece yet. It covered her entire back, incorporating all 4 original map tattoos, but transforming them into a garden maze. At the center, instead of asset locations, was a photorealistic portrait of Mason's face, smiling like he had before the gambling, before the debts, before everything went wrong. Text woven through the design. Art saves, love transforms, memory heals. So he's always watching over me, she'd explained to Aiden. Not haunting me, just watching. Knowing I made something beautiful from what he left behind. They returned to her old house one evening, the one she'd kept despite everything. Stood in the garage where blood had pooled in patterns that changed both their lives. The concrete was clean now, professionally treated, but the memory remained permanent. Skylar showed Aiden the crawl space where Mason had hidden the journals. This is where you saved my life, Aiden said, touching the small opening. No, Skylar corrected, lacing her fingers through his. This is where we saved each other. They stood in the garage where everything had started, where a dying man had fallen in a pattern that matched her tattoo, where art had become both weapon and salvation. Aiden pulled her close, his arms solid and real and safe. I have a question, he said. If it's another dramatic declaration, I'm maxed out on those. He laughed. Would you tattoo my ring finger? Skylar's breath caught. Planning to propose? Eventually, when you're ready. But I want to wear your art forever, Skylar. And I want everyone to know I'm yours. He paused. What design? You choose, she said, though her heart was already sketching possibilities. Something that means we're just beginning. The kiss was different from the desperate ones during the chaos, different from the grateful ones in hospital rooms. This kiss was certain and chosen, sealed with the permanence they'd both learned to embrace, not running from their scars, but wearing them as proof they'd survived. So, what would you do if blood revealed destiny? Would you run from art that became a weapon, or would you reclaim it, transform it, make it yours? Skylar chose transformation. Aiden chose redemption. Together, they chose love. Subscribe for more stories of unexpected salvation, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful things are born from the darkest nights. Drop a comment telling me, what would your tattoo reveal about your destiny? The blood had dried, the maps decoded, the monsters imprisoned, but the ink remained, no longer marking destruction but celebrating the stubborn, beautiful permanence of second chances and love that saves instead of destroys. And in a garage in Chicago's industrial district, two people who'd found each other through violence and art were finally completely home.